Exponential growth in your business comes with a downside, and it's this. You don't have the right workforce in the right place at the right time. My customer decided to build a trainee program to address this, only they had a real problem. Many felt entitled to a job other than the one they were offering, and most were not being self-responsible with the training to actually use it on the job. What went wrong that they couldn't find the right ratio between these two qualities? This is the tension of presence we're going to tell a story about. Sometimes it's helpful to start at the end of the story when the result that happened was really unsatisfying. In this case, the organization had built a training program to prepare people in a very custom, tailored way to their social norms and their culture and their business model, so that these folks would want to leave headquarters and go out into the field and be branch managers, having their own team, basically having their own book of business. And it didn't work out that way. They still had an us and them problem. Folks in the field thought headquarters didn't understand their business. People in headquarters thought the people in the field were feeling very entitled and were a little renegade in the way that they were running their business. So what was it about the actions they took in this particular training program that didn't fix that problem? It was a big thorny problem. The us and them mentality in both locations was creating a lot of breakdowns and wasted energy, not to mention the loss of productivity. As they started to reflect on the question, they started to see that they had some criteria that they definitely wanted people to learn at headquarters. Oh, then that revealed an incredible, important belief that only headquarters could be effective in producing the necessary skill set and mindset for these trainees to be good managers. And that only at headquarters could they learn how to break down the us and them walls that were building all over the system. Now, here's the thing. Where were they getting their data from? Their data was coming from only the people that were at headquarters. They had assumptions about what was really going on in the field and how field managers that were currently in positions felt about the relationship with headquarters. So the exclusion of the field because they just didn't want to hear one more entitled point of view really backfired on them. So one of the things we did was step back even another step and said, what are some of the habits and preferences and assumptions and biases that could have been operating when you were doing your original design work? And this was very revealing for the team. The first habit was that all training across the system, no matter what the content was always done at headquarters. And they'd spend a lot of time sending out materials to the field to get comment, and they'd never get anything back. So that was a little bit disturbing, and they thought, well, we're just going to shortcut that process and not check with them at all. Now remember, this trainee program is about preparing people to want to go out into the field and become branch managers. Might have been a flaw in their thinking. The preference was that they would put people through rotational assignments at headquarters so that they would have a better lay of the land, build relationships and a network at headquarters. So when they went out into the field, instead of going to another field manager, they'd gladly pick up the phone and call somebody at headquarters and see if we could short circuit some of the renegade behavior. That didn't work either because, of course, yes, they made those relationships, but here's what happened. More than 50% of the trainees refused to go to the field. They took jobs at headquarters because, of course, that's where the action was. That's where the good stuff was occurring. So this whole belief system that headquarters was better was definitely backfiring. A whole set of assumptions about what they could do versus what the field office could do. There it is again, the us and them. And that ultimately, that bias was so deeply embedded in how headquarters thought about this initiative that they completely stepped over their key stakeholder, which were the employees in the branch offices who were desperate to have new leadership. They had offices that were operating without anybody in the branch manager role because the growth had happened so quickly and they were not able to backfill. It was creating stress everywhere and putting the organization at a lot of financial risk because they didn't have proper oversight. So then we sat down and said, if you could do it all over again, knowing what you know now about your habits and preferences and assumptions and biases, how would you approach this a little bit differently? So the first step was, there's a whole bunch we need to know about what's going on in the branch offices from the branch people themselves. And they started to put together learning circles, and they invited people into headquarters from various regions of the country who could tell us a little bit about what was going on in the customer experience. What did you need in a branch manager? What was important for them to know about the field and important for them to know about headquarters? What were the things that were not making it down the communications pathway from headquarters to the field and really getting in the way of the kind of customer experience that everybody in the field wanted to generate? Those listening circles certainly gave them good content, but it did something even more important. It allowed for the restoration of a certain respect. Instead of the us and them mentality, which looked like headquarters thinking the field was being entitled, don't tread on my territory. You're not understanding what's going on. You don't get it out here. They, in fact, were being highly self-responsible because they were being left alone and not given enough resource. Only headquarters didn't realize that that was actually occurring. So these dialogues started to resolve this tension that was brewing for a very long time, with really culpability on both sides, in the field and at headquarters. So now they built a set of principles. They gained clarity about what was expected in the way one did networking and collaboration when you were working on things that required both field and headquarters input. And they agreed that the core values of respect and excellence and teamwork were the things that they needed to keep front and center every time they thought about initiating a request or making a decision that was outside the boundaries of a particular work group, whether that was headquarters or the field. It didn't really matter. The next time they designed the trainee program, they actually had 6 of the branch managers out in the field come in to be instructors. So there was a little better balance between the two parts of the system being able to provide education and onboarding to have people recognize, oh, teamwork is a value that's alive and well. It was walking their talk in the training program. They got the best of both worlds. The opportunity to be in headquarters and network, but clarity about the application and deployment in the field itself. In other words, they had the right to expect to learn in both places. That's where entitlement in ratio to self-responsibility. As a trainee, it's mine to figure out which branch I want to go to and how I'm going to run that office. These in balance, in the right ratio to the context, will always help us navigate thorny problems, particularly when they are emotional and social in their origin. At the last count, we had begun to see that the second group of trainees has been on the job for at least 12 months, in some cases a few more, than post-program. And they're also starting to see a reduction in attrition, people leaving the organization because it wasn't a satisfying role. So the results are favorable, but now is the time for them to make it repeatable, always paying attention to finding the right ratio between entitlement, which is the right and the privilege of employment in fair exchange with exercising self-responsibility, to trust one's own capability and all the training you've received, and the partnership that exists between you and the resource network you have. If you're watching this video shortly after it was released, there's still time for you to register and join us for the Vanguard Conversation series on this tension of presence, entitlement, and self-responsibility. If you'll go to the link down below. You can register. It's free. And there's also a tool there that you can use on your own thorny problem in advance of coming to the session, so you can get some support with it. If we're past the date, no worries. You can go to the same link and access the recording of the session and get the tool. And then go ahead and register for the rest of the series that's remaining in this year, because we're listening and participating in exploring thorny problems for all of the 7 tensions of presence. I hope to see you there real soon.